For the second panel, and I want to invite the moderator of the second discussion, Andrius Milinavičius, the general partner at Baltic Sandbox Ventures, to present the topic of the discussion, and the panel is joining him on stage.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Obviously, I do believe there's still somewhat mental capacity left. We've talked about multiple and very interesting solutions. We've talked about the problems, opportunities. We talked about the risks and how is it happening today. So it will be my pleasure now to invite a few of very distinguished panelists to join me on stage in order to discuss. In order to discuss the topic called money and how much money do we have to invest in innovation. At this point, I'd like to invite our first panel guest, and it is my absolute pleasure to invite, maybe the first time, definitely the first time in Lithuania, the recently appointed NATO Innovation Fund manager. Andrea, please join me on the stage, and round of applause for him. If I'm correct, it's only a few hours when we can literally call you by this position, right? Okay. Yeah, then obviously my next panelist will join us online, unfortunately, but obviously we can still have a pretty amazing and interesting discussion on this. Right, Edith? It's a pleasure to have you.
Good afternoon from Brussels.
Amazing. Thank you for joining us. Then we would like to invite a few of our panelists, if I can get the screen back on the screen. Anyways, I do know Victoria Trimble, Deputy CEO, Managing Director at CoInvest Capital. Victoria, I'm terribly sorry, but we need to spice it up, right, this audience. Thank you for joining us. Yes, round of applause. Then Inga Beliūnienė, Deputy CEO at INVEGA, our fund of funds. Obviously, one of the people behind the financing that we are happy about today. And last but not least, Mr. Edvinas Kerza, Managing Partner at ScaleWolf VC. Yes, a round of applause for him too. Yes, so we do have somewhat 45 minutes, but at this point, I do believe that this panel should focus on building bridges and aligning our expectations and understanding. So how can we continue to cooperate? How can we ensure that these kind of beautiful technology will reach more markets? Or how can we find those extremely promising scientists and engineers that are hiding somewhere and they never actually thought that the small idea technological that they're holding in their head can become a significant change on the battleground. But at this point, let's begin with my first question, and I'd like to, Andrea, to address to you. Military tech has historically been hidden behind 7 locks for obvious reasons. The war on the European continent has advanced this thinking and redefined the interpretation of ESG standards, hence incentivizing more defense innovation, both in terms of R&D and battlefield testing. But to what extent has this new reality become mainstream? Are you seeing more alignment between innovators, the financiers, and warfighters?
Thank you. Thank you, first of all, to invite me. Today is a special day for the NATO Innovation Fund. We launched the fund this morning. As you may know, this is a €1 billion fund focused on the security of the alliance citizens and on enhancing the technological advantage of NATO. And in answering to your question, I definitely feel that over the past year or more, there's been tremendous momentum around deep technology and its application, its dual-use application. In reality, deep tech has been in this sector for many, many years, whether it's laser or semiconductors. But because of the wave of deep tech innovation that we've seen on the last 5 to 10 years, it has now become into the fore, and how its application to dual use is becoming so significant. And I think it's an element of public awareness of the importance of deep tech, dual-use deep tech, as well, unfortunately, as the real need that we just heard about because of the war that we have in Europe. And so I think it was a combination of the two that has created this new consciousness around the need of investing, fostering innovation in deep technologies for dual use.
And thank you so much for that. Edith, I do remember while we were preparing for our panel, you did mention that the angle on how the ESG standards are being applicable for dual use on, let's say, defense solutions is changing. And you were mentioning few interesting angles on how should the crowd in the room in this specific event approach to what are the ESGs and what European Commission is expecting.
Yes, thank you very much. First of all, I would like to emphasize that the EU framework on sustainable finance doesn't impose any limitations on specific sectors. It's a transparency tool, and this is also true for defense. There is only a very specific limited area, the controversial weapons, which are prohibited by international law, which are deemed as non-sustainable under the EU sustainable legal framework. And the European Commission has emphasized recently at several occasions how important it is that the EU sustainable legal framework doesn't hamper the access to finance for the defense industry. More recently, it was in the Commission proposal for the regulation for the ammunition ramp-up. The Commission explicitly stated even that the European defense industry is the backbone for the European resilience, for the safety of the European citizens, and as such it contributes to the social sustainability of the EU. So I think these are very, very strong messages which have to be kept in mind, and it is important to know that there is no exclusion of the defense industry as such under the EU legal framework for the sakes of sustainability.
Thank you, Edith. And Victoria, now I would like to turn to you. You as a co-organizer of this event, obviously, you want to invest into alignment between the innovators, the financiers, or warfighters, or are you seeing already the alignment out there? And there's very little to add.
I think you can all see alignment on the stage. Because, yeah, we co-organized this event and we have brought together all actors of the ecosystem, from the military, from the media, from the diplomatic corps, and us risk capital managers, from pre-accelerator, accelerator, early stage fund like us investing together with business angels, with military background, and then, you know, as large as the first in the world supranational innovation fund. So definitely we are starting doing things together. In fact, you probably noticed on our program we had a kind of preliminary announcement, because I'm leading a consortium which is still having negotiations, and basically a few of the funds that are organizing this event, we are negotiating potentially to co-invest in one specific startup together, and then our fund have at least, I would say, 3 or 4 dual use or defense startups in our pipeline where we are already pretty advanced in making due diligence. So investments are definitely coming, and our ecosystem is very cooperative and aligned together. So we are looking for new deals.
Amazing. Today's warfighting has become all-encompassing. On the one hand, we see success of old-school artillery, right? As well as the dogfight between the tactical drones. On the other hand, our societies have become a party this war as well, due to the new battle domains opening up in, for example, cyber, information, and hybrid operations. With the society's involvement in war, some call it the whole of society approach to warfare. There's a great role for both private companies, for example, once again, cybersecurity companies, and for private financiers, for example, venture capital funds like ours, for example, Baltic Sandbox Ventures. What role do you foresee for VCs in incentivizing defense innovation over the next decade? Inga, I'm addressing this specific question to you. We do have 1 billion in the room. Maybe we have a bit smaller fund of funds that is governmental led, but what is your position on this?
Yeah, actually, hi everybody. I am sitting. I am an LP in actually all of these, all of these funds. Those guys you are seeing here on the screen, in NATO Innovation Fund as well, and Baltic Sandbox, Co-Investment Fund, and ScaleWolf. We are very happy to announce the first closing of ScaleWolf. Yeah, so we are a kind of fund manager and finance provider to the companies. And we understood that together with Ministry of Defense and that actually we started to discuss the potential investments into defense sector and dual-use products earlier than 2021, as Dominique has told. We started to discuss this in 2018, if I remember correctly, because we understood that this is a very important sector. And actually, that's correct, that it was a kind of taboo for some time of previously to invest or to finance defense sector and dual use, defense part of dual use. Of course, it was not forbidden, I agree, with the European Commission representative, but it's a risky sector, which means additional checks and additional responsibilities of checking the investments, where all those weapons or all those products are going further. So actually, as I mentioned, we started to talk and to prepare for a launching of financial instruments which would be dedicated for dual-use products and for defense sector quite early. But, of course, the war in Ukraine showed that it's very, very important. And we have to do much more than we were doing in previous years. That's why we think that it's very important to really further stimulate this financing and to do as much as possible and to really help developing dual-use products and defense products as well. And we are currently even thinking of additional financing. It's not going to be via venture capital, it's going to be via debt instruments, but in any case, we are putting more and more efforts together with the ministries to finance really startups and companies in the sector.
Edvinas, maybe you would like to jump in on the role of VCs in defense innovation.
Yeah, many thanks, actually. Well, for me, it's about the goal, what we're trying to do, right? So first of all, we are trying to protect our democracy and save lives, and that's the main goal. Secondly, what we do, what is our motivation to reach the goal? So for me and for us, I think is building bridges between different actors, different authorities, different expertises and experiences, right? We are all unique actually in this room. We have some ideas, we have some technologies, we have some softwares and hardwares that might be used to save lives. And this is the most important thing we are trying to say here, right? Then is how we do this, right? And what Inga is saying, that our attitude, our mindset a little bit changed, probably I would say even in 2014, when we saw how Russian aggression showed the new phase, where we heard, first of all, hybrid warfare, right? Information threat, cybersecurity threat, being green and saying I'm not Russian, right? It was a very popular saying at that moment. So denying the happening, denying the worries in our countries happening. So what we were learning as a democratic country, as not an aggressor, we were trying to reach our, and to change our mindset. And I think at the moment we're standing on a very interesting stage where we will step forward and we will be in front of aggressor very soon by combining those ideas, by finding those solutions and delivering them to those talents that some are part in this room, some are somewhere sitting in their garages or whatever, sellers, and trying to, to create something, to program something, to think of something, and that's where we come. With a playground, with small opportunities, and with some possibilities to scale, to grow, to present, and to jointly combine some new values that will be fighting for our democracy and our lives.
Thank you so much, Edvinas, for that. And Andrea, now I would like to turn to you. Obviously, we are building the ecosystem to begin at the very early stage, when it's very fragile. In the first panel discussion, there was also a thing called Death Valley mentioned. At this point, you, as NATO Innovation Fund, you step in a bit later, or you'd like to tell us something about the very early stage innovation that could be financed?
The strategy of the fund, that obviously is still in development, will include both indirect and direct investments. So our plan is to also invest in funds like the one we heard about today at the very early stage and co-invest and invest in these companies. And the more important point, which I think is extremely innovative, and I think NATO and all the investors like the Lithuanian government and the 23 participating allies did, is something which is really, really brave in my mind, really courageous. And they basically fill the gap that has been left by the private and public market until now, which is an acceptance that it takes a lot of patience and time and a significant amount of capital to build these companies to a scale where they can address very large market and defense and security market, where the customers are very demanding, very sophisticated, very large, and hard to address unless you have scale. And so to me, the key thing that really the NATO Innovation Fund is uniquely positioned to solve is this patience and the ability, because of our sister activity with Diana that we just heard deep about, is to be able to understand the need of the user and to find that product market fit in a way that is efficient and help this company scale through that product market fit process. So I think that what NATO did is extremely courageous and innovative, and I'm very proud to be associated with this activity.
Amazing. I can't express how happy we are to have this kind of tool available on the Global Alliance, right? Edith, at this point, we also have European Defense Fund, right? That is not competing, rather than it's a cooperating tool. And we would like to maybe understand slightly a bit more on where does the EDF stand?
Yes, so first of all, congratulations for the launching of the NATO Innovation Fund. Yeah, we are not competing with the NATO Innovation Fund. I think our aims and objectives are the same. But we also have quite some projects ongoing here in the European Commission. And here I would like to indeed talk a little bit about the European Defence Fund, which was a game changer when it was announced. It was then formally launched in 2021, but it had some predecessor programs. The European Defence Fund is the first time the EU is putting public money for defense research and capability development. And this is a very, very big milestone because under the EDF, we are financing collaborative projects which are really defense related. It's not even dual use, it's really core defense. So this was a very, very, very important step. The EDF is also very collaborative, so the whole way and the mechanisms which are incorporated in the program foster collaboration between the EU member states and Norway, who is also participating. And we are also incentivize the participation of SMEs. So the aim is really to have cooperation among entities in different member states of different sizes along the entire supply chain. I think it is also very important to highlight the new feature under the EDF, which is the European Defence Innovation Scheme, the UDIS, which has been recently launched, and it really aims to help SMEs, startups, but also perhaps more mature companies who are active in the civil sector to enter the defense activities. I think it has been mentioned earlier that it is not an easy sector to operate as a company because it's all kind of legal requirements connected to it. So this UDIS program is specifically tailored helping companies to enter the defense sector. And there are different tracks, and these aim at companies to help them challenging their ideas, testing innovation, empower them, giving them coaching, and also helping to migrate from civil to defense. And one of the very important features of this UDIS is the access to finance. And here I would like to talk very briefly about the Defense Equity Facility, which is 100 million euro from the EDF budget, which will be made available through the European Investment Fund on top of InvestEU, to invest in European funds, which in turn then invest in EU companies who are active in defense-related technologies. So this will be a very important element of EDF, and we expect to leverage €500 million of private equity through this defense equity facility by 2027. So these are the actions. What we see is that there is need for both public and private financing. And we also, in complement to the defense equity facility, we are launching several new initiatives to build capacity and to foster a real defense ecosystem together with private equity and venture capital funds. One of the first steps for doing this was at the EDF Info Days 2 weeks ago, where we for the first time really met with investors who are interested in investing in defense-related technologies, and we organize matchmaking sessions, but we will follow up further on these actions. Thank you.
Yes, and at this point, I'd like to turn to Victoria and Edwin. As we heard so many numbers being mentioned, is it enough for the Lithuanian defense or dual-use ecosystem to actually be fostered, or there's something else we need to do in order to, I don't know, to help the European and NATO innovators to build new innovation that is still missing?
Well, so first of all, as Dominika said, like a few years ago it was 0. Right now we have 55 million of dry powder, and our fund has 25 million in the management. 15 million of that is dry powder, and Inga just mentioned there are more money coming into the system. So this is a start. Of course, this is not enough. Defense and dual-use innovations require a lot of capital, especially if that's hardware. And the risk is much higher, but that's why we are here. We are mandated to do risk, and through various acceleration programs that I guess Edwin will explain more. Our fund, we have another feature. We typically co-invest with business angels, and we have already a few business angels accredited with our fund directly who have military experience. So at every early stage company, you don't need just money, you also need connections, you need experience, you need access to different industries, to different people, and that's why those small money that we have at the moment, but as the Vice Minister said, we have big ambitions. So that's a very good place to start. And then we can grow from there. So Edwin, maybe you would like to add, what your accelerator will do to help those startups grow.
Correct. I'll talk from my personal experience, and I would say we're learning by doing. Until now, in those couple of years, by such great supporters, we've learned a lot in legal things, because dual-use military is not something simple as we heard in our bureaucratic life. So you need to pass some procedures to break into our minds, to shift to second stage, where we are ready now to propose a learning program, ecosystem building tools. And it's obvious that now it's the right time to talk about second funds, second opportunities, because those guys and girls are growing fast, right? They're not walking, not crawling, they're running, and every day they create something extraordinary, something that needs to be supported by our knowledge, right? By our funds, accelerators, pre-accelerators, whatever you call them, and of course money to be able to scale, to be able to progress, to be able to go to other markets, to be able to provide those great technologies that will save lives again.
Yes, and at this point, Andrea, obviously, you got a chance, or you had a glance on the very, let's say, young, but also inspiring ecosystem we have already built here. And obviously, NATO Innovation Fund and Diana Network, they are two strategic and very groundbreaking models that incentivize the defense innovation or dual tech innovation. At this point, we see this framework as very helpful for our ecosystem to learn from, but my question maybe would be a bit different. How can we help you to help us?
It's a good question. Hosting events like this is a great start. This is a great event. The presentation for the company was very impressive. And so we as NATO Innovation Fund and as thanks to Diana with their local presence, we plan to visit the markets, cover the markets, co-invest, invest in local funds. And I think it's through building those networks and building local clusters, fostering the capabilities that we just heard about, that we are very excited about. This acceleration, we create deep tech cluster for dual use technologies, and that will enable insourcing of other type of safe capital into this market behind the NATO Innovation Fund and all the funds, international capital, and that will accelerate the ecosystem. And I think that we are not far off. I think we are hopefully going to push this agenda very, very fast. But I think it's all about building these networks and building these relationships.
Absolutely agree. Edith, how can we help EDF to help us, to help you, to help us?
So it's a very good question. First of all, I would like to emphasize that the 2023 EDF calls are open until the end of November. So I invite everybody to consult the EDF webpage to see whether there is anything. We have a lot of thematic calls, but also non-thematic calls for SMEs. And also, of course, we have the UDIS webpage, which you can consult. I mean, SMEs are really a backbone of the EDF. And when it was created, there has been perhaps the fear that this will be a lot of money to the big players. I mean, we talk about more than €1 billion per year for a project, but this is not the case. The first 2 years of EDF has shown that 40% of the participants 40% of the entities are SMEs from all over the EU, and 20% of the overall funding goes to SMEs. So this is a really powerful instrument for SMEs. I mean, also from Lithuania, there have been more than 10 entities participating each year so far in this program. So this is very important. As I said, in the UDIS, the spin-in calls, the business coaching for SMEs, the hackathons, the innovation test hub, this is all aimed at mainly SMEs and startups to enter the defense sector. So please go and consult the relevant information. It may be useful for you. Thank you.
I believe we will definitely share this information on our events website. Also, Inga, but at this point, obviously, we already see that Lithuanian dual-use high-potential technology developers and innovators already are joining the agenda, and they do participate in various tools that are being presented. But it also takes a subtle framework to develop a real working prototype or a solution that could be deployed. You did mention a bit about the new tools that you're trying to negotiate or discuss in INVEGA. Maybe you could say a couple of words on what can our ecosystem expect in years future?
I don't want to disclose as much as possible, you know. No, because it's a negotiation with the European Commission, not DG Defense's DG ECFIN. And we are talking about really quite a substantial amount of money, but it's still negotiations. So if we succeed, we will open really a new instrument, direct loans instrument for not only defense sector, but defense will also have its stake in that money. So we are talking about really huge money, similar to NATO Innovation Fund. Yes, but in essence, what I would like to stress that actually we have a cooperation here, a potential cooperation on the stage. And I would really invite the companies or developers of ideas or founders of startups to use those opportunities. Because here we have a kind of a smaller brother of Diana and NATO Innovation Fund. It's an accelerator with equity fund in itself. Another accelerator sitting here, and Dominikas is representing it, and here is an investment fund. And NATO Innovation Fund is a big brother, which really has huge opportunities to invest into startups and into those which are developing dual-use products. So I would really like to invite everybody to utilize all these opportunities and to utilize what's already on the ground. And then we will help to develop your idea further.
And this amazing position brings me to my next question to Andrea. Among some of the geographically smaller states of NATO, there is sometimes a feeling that our national defense industries are not very welcomed by more established players. Yet at the same time, the smaller states produce some of the world's leading high-tech components. For Lithuania, it is obviously lasers and many more of interesting gadgets that we see today here. So what can we do to actually make this gap way smaller and, for example, to be invited at the big tables to present what we have?
I think the smaller nations, and we have been working on this for a few months, so there's still a lot of learning from my team. But what we've seen so far that actually small nations are very innovative. And I would push the smaller nations to be early adopters of new technologies directly from startups to basically show the largest defense sectors. And unfortunately, we're seeing in Ukraine, and the speech we had before was an amazing example of how you can innovate on the ground and adopt technology much faster and do it better, cheaper. So I would love to see that type of mentality spread across all the regions. And I think that the smaller nations have a significant role to play in being a leader in showing that and being experimental and taking some risks and advance this agenda faster.
Understood. Edith, would you have any recommendations how the smaller nations can jump into the game that usually the bigger players, especially to the West, are very good at?
Yes, I think here I can only repeat, all the mechanisms which are under the EDF and how they really foster the cooperation between member states and SMEs. But there is also an additional element to this, and this is the internal market. We have heard, I think, a little bit earlier that the defense market is very special, and I agree. But the defense industry is also subject to the internal market rules. So I think also the smaller players should use all the options which the internal market gives them to maximize their chances. Maybe just, I mentioned already that there's a lot in the EDF for SMEs, but there are also non-thematic SME calls and lump sums, which are really targeted to small companies, where they can jump on board and develop skills, which then later help them to participate in the supply chains of bigger projects and bigger companies. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And maybe to wrap it up, because obviously we are speedily arriving to our end of the official part, and we're moving to the best part of this event, right? The networking part. We can all agree that building innovation or building defense innovation is hard. And what are your maybe last thoughts on should the competition or cooperation empower the real innovation to happen? And maybe what would be your main wish for the innovators and founders and other representatives of the defense or innovation ecosystem sitting out here in this hall? Edvinas, can I start with you?
Sure. You know, I think that size doesn't matter, actually. I think matters our ideas and our braveness. Even bad result is a result, right? If we fail, it means a good result. We tried and we moved forward to the next, exercise where we will absolutely succeed. So my idea would be, let's go and do it, and let's try again if we fall, and we will obviously find the correct version of our technology, of our idea, and we will build, something that will be very valuable.
Thank you for that, Inga.
Edvinas already stole my, my speech, but in any case, compete, cooperate, innovate, and do it.
Yes, yes, and let's align our expectations, obviously, right? Because if one hand doesn't know what other hand is doing, that's why I love this event that we are organizing today. At this point, Edith, what would be your last wish for the ecosystem and the founders that are sitting in the hall?
Thank you very much. Maybe just one thought on competition and collaboration. I think competition is very important. We should compete, but we should also collaborate within the EU in order to be able to compete with players outside the EU. So I think maybe this is just my thought on the on your competition versus collaboration thought. And what I would like to maybe just really give as a last message is that I think it has been recognized, the funding gap for the defense companies and the defense SMEs. So this is something I think which is now known by everybody. And the Commission has also recognized that there is a need to take action. So this is what we will follow up. So please collaborate with us, cooperate with us in the future actions, because this is to the benefit of the entire ecosystem. So these are my main messages to the audience. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Victoria, what are your thoughts?
Well, a little bit more than 1 month ago, here in this hall, we had a strategy event of our fund, which was coded CNC. And those letters CNC stood for communicating, networking, and conquering. And, just an idea is just an idea until you, first of all, communicate it. That's why we have today so many, startups that we want to showcase. And I mean, neither them nor us are afraid that somebody will steal an idea. The question is, are you able to execute? So first thing, we have to spread the word, and that's why we are doing this event. Our main target audience was to really use the global attention on Vilnius, on our defense innovation and investment ecosystem, so that we would communicate, first of all. Then we are here to network, and as Andrius already mentioned, that's the fun that will begin very shortly. And last but not least, to conquer the world, we have to cooperate. That's my final message. Well, not final, I will be giving a closing speech, so.
Understood. Okay, Andrea, as a brand new manager of the biggest intercontinent, oh my God, I could continue saying how big it is, supranational fund, NATO Innovation Fund. What would be your maybe last message for the hall that will be recorded officially? Then we will move to off the records.
Thank you. So first and foremost is an invitation to reach out. We're going to start investing later this year. We want to build relationships, be part of your ecosystem, help develop your ecosystem. We want to be an active player. So we will be reaching out very proactively, but do come and look for us and establish a relationship and have a conversation with us, because we're very keen for you to succeed.
And thank you for that. Can I ask a round of applause from the hall for my amazing panel? Thank you so much for the ideas that you've shared. Mr. Andrea, Mesiedet, Victoria, Inga, and Edvinas. And I think, Marius, the floor is now coming back to your hands, right?
So once again, thank you very much, dear panelists. Andrew, for your moderation. It was great. Many insightful thoughts, many new ideas, many ideas for collaboration and how we can help each other to reach the best for our ecosystem. And since the official part of the event is coming to an end, I want to once again invite Victoria Trimble on the stage for some closing remarks.
Well, I will be brief, and I won't take you from the funniest and most exciting networking part. I listened to the address, a welcoming address by the Vice Minister, Erika. One phrase that she said, that our team was optimistically stubborn, really made me smile inside. And I would like to thank all of you who are in this room. First of all, our audience who managed all the complicated, restricted access labyrinths and uncertainty, and actually came here to join and listen and network later. And I, of course, would like to thank our panelists, our moderators, for joining us on a very short notice, and of course, the Dream Team. And when I say short notice, I just checked. The original idea to have an event like this was cooking in the minds of the Baltic Sandbox Ventures for quite a while. But everyone was very busy in the ecosystem. And when I just checked today, it was exactly June 12th, 2 p.m., 8 minutes, when we started a kind of team chat. And, you know, I said, idea is not enough. Let's just make it happen. And we will not ask for the permission, and we will not say sorry. We'll just do it. And this is what we created from the 12th of June. So now I would really like to use this opportunity and to call all of our speakers and panelists and moderators and all of our team members who contributed to this event to go on stage for a final photo. And please give all of us a sincere round of applause.